The massive crystalline dome of the Galactic Council headquarters loomed over Ambassador Marcus Reynolds like a monument to power itself. Transparent panels revealed the swirling nebula beyond, a constant reminder that the beings inside controlled the fate of thousands of worlds across 3 spiral arms of the Milky Way. Reynolds adjusted his formal, diplomatic uniform, earth blue with silver trim, and steadied his breathing. The fate of humanity rested on what happened in the next few minutes. Ambassador Reynolds of Earth, the Council will receive you now, announced a slender being with translucent skin and 6 graceful limbs. The universal translator rendered its melodic language into crisp English. Reynolds nodded, his gray eyes betraying none of the anxiety churning in his stomach. 6 months of preparation had led to this moment. Behind him, his small diplomatic team, just 3 humans against the combined might of galactic civilization, exchanged quick glances of encouragement. The massive doors parted silently, revealing the council chamber in all its intimidating glory. Tiers of seating rose in concentric rings around a central speaking platform. Each tier held representatives from dozens of spacefaring species, some humanoid, others so alien that Reynolds struggled to comprehend their biology. Floating illumination spheres cast shifting patterns of light across the chamber, while hidden technology maintained perfect atmospheric conditions for each species present. Humanity presents itself before the Galactic Council, announced a booming voice from somewhere above. Step forward, Ambassador. Reynolds walked to the central platform, feeling the weight of thousands of alien eyes upon him. The platform rose slightly once he stepped aboard, positioning him at the focal point of the entire chamber. A holographic display materialized above his head showing Earth, beautiful blue, and utterly insignificant against the vastness of Council space. From the highest tier, Council Prime Director Zorlak leaned forward. The massive arthropoid being's compound eyes glittered with barely concealed contempt. The Council recognizes Earth. Zorlak's mandibles clicked as the translation echoed throughout the chamber. You come before us asking recognition as a full member world. We have reviewed your petition extensively. Reynolds maintained perfect diplomatic composure. The people of Earth thank the Council for its consideration. Consideration which has been troubling, interrupted another Council member. Admiral Vex of the Draconian Fleet, his scaled skin shimmering under the chamber lights. Your species has advanced remarkably quickly. Too quickly for comfort. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the assembly. Reynolds had expected this. We've had good teachers, he responded carefully. Since first contact, Earth has diligently studied the technological and cultural guidance provided by Council observers. And yet, you've developed innovations outside our approved curriculum, countered a third Council member, the crystalline entity known as Elder Luminex. Its body refracted light in dazzling patterns as it spoke. Your quantum computation methods are unorthodox. Reynolds nodded respectfully. Humanity has always approached problems from unique angles. It's part of our adaptive nature. Adaptive or dangerous, growled Admiral Vex. With a gesture, he summoned new holographic displays surrounding Reynolds. They showed Earth's recent technological developments, spacecraft, defense systems, communications arrays. In 50 years, you've progressed through 300 years of standard development curves. The chamber erupted in concerned chatter. Reynolds waited for it to subside before responding. We merely seek to become valuable contributors to galactic civilization, he stated calmly. Earth wishes only for equal standing among the stars. Council Prime Director Zorlak made a sharp gesture with one clawed appendage, silencing the chamber instantly. Your petition for full membership is denied, Ambassador Reynolds. Furthermore, the Council has decided that humanity requires closer supervision. Effective immediately, we are imposing technological development restrictions and increasing our oversight presence in your solar system. Reynolds blinked, the only sign of surprise he allowed himself. This was worse than their worst-case projections. May I ask the justification for these measures? He inquired, his voice steady despite the diplomatic disaster unfolding. Protection, replied Elder Luminex, its crystalline form pulsing with light. Both yours and ours. Species that develop too rapidly often self-destruct. We've seen it countless times. And sometimes they destroy others in the process, added Admiral Vex ominously. The restrictions are non-negotiable. Council oversight will triple. Your military capabilities will be reduced by 30%. All experimental quantum research will cease. Reynolds took a deep breath. The next words he spoke would alter humanity's future forever. His hand moved subtly to his wrist, where a small communication device was concealed beneath his sleeve. One gentle press activated the emergency protocol they'd hoped never to use. "The people of Earth reject these terms," Reynolds stated, his voice suddenly carrying throughout the chamber with unexpected authority. "We came seeking partnership. Instead, you offer subjugation." Gasps and outraged cries echoed across the chamber. Council Prime Director Zorlak rose to his full height, towering even from his distant perch. "You have no authority to reject Council directives, human." Zorlak's mandibles clacked furiously. "Your world is within Council space. You will comply or face consequences." Reynolds smiled thinly. "I'm afraid you've misunderstood our position, Director Zorlak. Earth does not reject the Council's authority out of defiance." He paused, letting the tension build. "We reject it because, as of 4 standard minutes ago when I activated the signal, humanity has formally declared itself at war with the Galactic Council." Stunned silence fell across the chamber, followed quickly by eruptions of laughter from multiple species. Admiral Vex actually slammed a scaled hand against his console in amusement. "War? With us?" The Admiral's laughter continued. "Your species possesses fewer than 50 interstellar vessels. The Council commands over 20,000. "This is absurd!" Reynolds remained perfectly composed. "Numbers can be deceiving, Admiral. As you've noted, humans think differently." Suddenly, the chamber's lighting flickered. The holographic displays surrounding Reynolds distorted momentarily before stabilizing. Throughout the massive room, delegates checked their personal devices with growing confusion. "What you fail to understand about humanity," Reynolds continued as the disruption spread, "is that we learned long ago that direct confrontation isn't always the optimal strategy." Council Prime Director Zorlak stabbed at his control panel. "Security, remove the human ambassador immediately." But the security forces at the chamber's perimeter remained motionless. Their communication systems emitted only static. "While we've been entertaining your oversight for the past 5 decades, Reynolds explained calmly, "we've been implementing what we call a Trojan horse strategy. Every Council technology shared with Earth was studied, reverse-engineered, and subtly modified before being integrated into our systems." The main display above the chamber suddenly activated without command, showing thousands of small objects detaching from Earth ships and commercial vessels throughout Council space. "Those aren't weapons," Reynolds explained, as confusion turned to alarm across the chamber. "They're networked quantum infiltrators based on those unorthodox computation methods you mentioned. As we speak, they're accessing your command systems, defense networks, and communication relays." Elder Luminex's crystalline form pulsed with agitation. "This is impossible. Our security protocols were designed to defend against attacks, you understand," Reynolds interrupted. "Humanity recognized early that we couldn't match your military might conventionally, so we didn't try." Now true panic was spreading through the chamber as delegates received urgent communications from their homeworlds. Critical systems throughout Council space were experiencing unexplainable failures or operating under external control. "What you're witnessing isn't a declaration of conquest," Reynolds clarified as the chaos mounted. "It's a demonstration of leverage. Humanity has no desire to rule the Council or destroy what you've built over millennia. We simply refuse to be controlled." Council Prime Director Zorlak's compound eyes fixed on Reynolds with newfound respect and fear. "What are your demands?" Reynolds straightened his shoulders. "Full membership for Earth with equal standing, a non-interference pact guaranteeing our technological autonomy, and a restructuring of Council oversight protocols for all developing worlds." "You would threaten us to force policy changes?" Admiral Vex snarled. "We would demonstrate that partnership must be built on mutual respect, not dominance," Reynolds countered. "The quantum infiltrators will withdraw completely once new accords are established. No permanent damage will be done to any system." The 3 senior Council members conferred urgently among themselves. Throughout the chamber, the representatives of 1,000 worlds watched with a mixture of fear, outrage, and, from some of the newer member species, poorly concealed admiration. "The Council will consider your proposals," Council Prime Director Zorlak finally announced, his voice subdued. "A negotiation committee will be formed immediately." Reynolds nodded. "Earth appreciates your wisdom, Director. We look forward to productive discussions." He stepped off the platform, which lowered him back. Admiral Laura Donovan stood on the bridge of the Earth flagship Defiant, watching the tactical holo display with intense focus. The massive vessel hovered at the edge of the Sol system, its advanced stealth systems rendering it nearly invisible to conventional sensors. 3 weeks had passed since Ambassador Reynolds' dramatic confrontation with the Galactic Council, and the diplomatic chaos that followed had been exactly as predicted. "Status report," Donovan commanded, her voice carrying the authority earned through 30 years of military service. At 55, her face showed the lines of experience while her posture remained ramrod straight. Commander Jackson stepped forward, tablet in hand. "Council forces are mobilizing across all sectors, Admiral. Our infiltration network confirms 17 battle groups converging on predetermined staging areas." Donovan nodded, unsurprised. "And our quantum network? Operating at 98% efficiency. The Council still hasn't realized the full extent of our infiltration." Jackson hesitated. "They're convinced we've withdrawn the majority of our systems as a show of good faith during negotiations." A grim smile crossed Donovan's face. "Let them believe that." Operations Command. The holo display shifted, showing a secure connection to Earth Defense Headquarters buried deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. General Victor Ramirez's weathered face appeared, looking equally concerned and determined. "The Council's diplomatic front is a shambles, Laura," he reported without preamble. "Half their member worlds are demanding explanations about how a primitive species managed to compromise their systems. The other half are calling for immediate military action to contain the human threat." "Just as the psychological models predicted," Donovan replied. "Have they realized yet that we never actually attacked them?" Ramirez shook his head. "That's the beauty of it. We demonstrated capability without causing harm. Their own fear is doing most of the work for us." The view screen suddenly flickered, an incoming priority transmission overriding their conversation. Ambassador Reynolds appeared, looking considerably more tired than when he had stood before the Galactic Council. "Admiral General," he acknowledged, "I'm transmitting from the Council's diplomatic vessel. The situation has escalated. The military hardliners have seized control of the Emergency Response Committee." Donovan's expression darkened. "Admiral Vex and his allies from the inner core worlds," Reynolds confirmed. "They've authorized deployment of the 9th Fleet toward Earth, over 3,000 vessels." Commander Jackson paled visibly. "Our entire fleet numbers less than 100 ships. Conventional vessels, yes," Donovan corrected calmly. "Operation Phantom Shield?" Reynolds nodded on screen. "Greenlit and awaiting your command. I've been confined for my safety aboard this diplomatic vessel. In reality, they're holding me as leverage. They still don't understand who they're dealing with," Donovan said softly. She turned to her communications officer. "Lieutenant Rivera, transmit the Orpheus protocol to all Earth vessels and colonies. Then activate our sleeper network. Throughout Council space, on thousands of worlds and aboard countless vessels, humans who had integrated into galactic society over decades received encrypted transmissions. Most were scientists, engineers, traders, ordinary people living quiet lives far from Earth. But each carried dormant programming in their neural implants, standard technology for space travelers that the Council had never suspected could be weaponized. On the draconian homeworld, Dr. James Porter, respected xenobiologist and 20-year resident, received his activation signal while examining specimens in his laboratory. Without a word, he calmly walked to the Central Environmental Control Facility, where he had consulting privileges, entered his access codes, and uploaded a seemingly routine maintenance patch. Similar scenes played out across Council space. No dramatic confrontations, no violence, just thousands of positioned humans performing small, seemingly innocuous actions that collectively formed a massive coordinated response. Back aboard the Defiant, Admiral Donovan received confirmation signals as the network activated. "Orpheus protocol at 70% and climbing," Commander Jackson reported with barely contained awe. "No detection or resistance reported." Ambassador Reynolds watched from his screen. "The Council doesn't understand humans, Admiral. They think in terms of direct force, fleets, weapons, traditional power. While we think in terms of systems and networks," Donovan finished. "The most dangerous weapon is the one your enemy doesn't recognize until it's too late." The holographic tactical display suddenly shifted, showing the massive Council 9th Fleet altering its formation. Ships began breaking from their battle groups, communication patterns becoming erratic. "What's happening?" asked Jackson, squinting at the display. Phase 2, Donovan explained. Every council vessel incorporates our quantum processors, technology we shared during diplomatic exchanges over the past decade. They thought they were studying our designs. In reality, those processors contained dormant override protocols. The tactical display now showed the Council fleet fragmenting completely, individual vessels moving in seemingly random patterns. General Ramirez's voice cut through the momentary silence. The Council is experiencing what we planned. The sudden realization that they've built our access points into the heart of their military. On his diplomatic vessel, Ambassador Reynolds received an urgent communication. His expression remained neutral as he addressed someone off-screen. Yes, Council Director. I understand the situation is concerning. Earth remains open to dialogue. He paused, listening. No, we cannot simply turn off these systems. They're now integrated throughout your infrastructure. When he returned his attention to Donovan and Ramirez, his eyes conveyed subtle triumph. Director Zorlak is requesting an emergency session. The military option is being reconsidered. Admiral Donovan nodded. Inform the Director that Earth has no desire for conflict. Our defensive measures will remain in place until a fair agreement is reached. After Reynolds' transmission ended, Commander Jackson approached Donovan privately. Admiral, the crew is wondering, did we actually take control of their fleet, or is this all an elaborate bluff? Donovan's expression remained inscrutable. What do you think, Commander? Jackson studied the tactical display, watching as the mighty Council Ninth Fleet continued its chaotic movements. I think it doesn't matter. They believe we did, and that's enough. Perception creates reality, Commander. Remember that. Donovan turned to address the bridge crew. Maintain defensive posture. No provocative actions. We've shown our capabilities without firing a single shot. 12 hours later, aboard the massive Council Station Harmonic Convergence, representatives from Earth and the Galactic Council gathered in a private chamber. The usual pomp and ceremony had been abandoned in favor of urgent pragmatism. Ambassador Reynolds sat alone on one side of the circular table. Across from him, Council Prime Director Zorlak, Elder Luminex, and 3 other senior council representatives projected a united front that their nervous movements betrayed as facade. The Council has reviewed Earth's position, Zorlak began, his mandibles moving stiffly. We are prepared to offer concessions regarding your membership status. Reynolds maintained perfect diplomatic composure. Earth isn't seeking concessions, Director. We're seeking partnership based on mutual respect. Elder Luminex's crystalline form pulsed with agitation. Your species has compromised critical infrastructure across thousands of worlds. Millions of lives depend on those systems. Systems that continue to function perfectly, Reynolds pointed out calmly. No life support has failed. No navigation system has crashed. We demonstrated capability, not malice. A new council member leaned forward, Admiral Trell of the Aquarian Collective, her scaled aquatic features glistening under the chamber lights. What guarantee do we have that these infiltration systems will be removed once an agreement is reached? The same guarantee you have that your oversight forces would eventually leave Earth. Trust built through cooperation, Reynolds replied. He placed a data crystal on the table. This contains our proposed framework for a new relationship, not just with Earth, but restructuring how the Council interacts with all developing worlds. Director Zorlak's compound eyes studied Reynolds with newfound respect. You planned this confrontation from the beginning. Reynolds shook his head. We planned for multiple scenarios. This was never our preferred outcome, merely our contingency if partnership was denied. For hours they negotiated. Occasionally, Reynolds would receive updates from Admiral Donovan or General Ramirez, each communication subtly reinforcing Earth's position of strength. By the time the session concluded, the outline of a new relationship had emerged, one where Earth would join the Council, not as a supervised protectorate but as a full member, with unique technological contributions as the Council representatives filed out. Director Zorlak remained behind, waiting until they were alone with Reynolds. How much of your infiltration capability was real? The massive arthropoid asked quietly. The quantum network, the sleeper agents, the processor backdoors. How much was actual technology and how much was strategic deception? The massive observation deck of the Galactic Council headquarters buzzed with anxious energy. Representatives from hundreds of worlds clustered in small groups, their diverse anatomies and colorful diplomatic attire creating a living mosaic against the backdrop of stars. Through the transparent dome overhead, the spectacular ringed gas giant harmonium dominated the view, its swirling storms casting purple and gold reflections across the polished floor. Director of Intelligence Lyra Vasquez moved carefully through the gathering, her unassuming human appearance allowing her to navigate the crowd with relative anonymity. At 42, Vasquez had the kind of forgettable features that served her profession perfectly. Medium height, brown hair cut in a practical style, and eyes that revealed nothing while missing nothing. "They're waiting for blood," murmured a voice beside her. Ambassador Reynolds had appeared at her elbow, looking considerably more rested than during their crisis negotiations 3 months earlier. His formal diplomatic attire, now bearing the insignia of a full council member world, drew considerably more attention than Vasquez's plain gray suit. "Whose blood exactly?" she asked quietly, accepting a glass of blue, liquid from a hovering service drone. Reynolds nodded subtly toward the chamber's main entrance where Council Prime Director Zorlak was engaged in intense conversation with a delegation of inner core representatives. Half of them want ours for forcing the Council to capitulate. The other half want Zorlak's for allowing the situation to develop in the first place. Vasquez took a careful sip of her drink, hiding her assessment of the room behind the gesture. "And the third half?" Reynolds arched an eyebrow. "Third half? There's always a third faction nobody notices until it's too late," she explained. "Elementary intelligence principle." Before Reynolds could respond, the ambient lighting dimmed slightly, the traditional signal that formal proceedings were about to commence. The gathered representatives began moving toward the central chamber, a gradual migration of diverse species flowing through ornate doorways. "This vote will determine the real balance of power," Reynolds said as they joined the procession. "Everything until now has been positioning." The central chamber of the council headquarters made the observation deck look modest by comparison. Vast tiers of seating rose in concentric rings around a central platform, accommodating representatives from over 3,000 worlds. Holographic nameplates floated before each seat, automatically translating designations into the preferred language of whoever viewed them. Vasquez and Reynolds made their way to the newly installed Earth delegation area, where General Ramirez and 3 other human representatives already waited. Their seating position, neither at the prestigious center nor relegated to the outer rings, reflected Earth's ambiguous new status. "Director Vasquez," Ramirez greeted her formally, though his eyes conveyed deeper meaning. "Our systems report normal conditions." Vasquez nodded slightly. "For now." The network detected 12 separate probing attempts in the past 6 hours. "They're looking for our back doors." "Let them look," Reynolds said confidently as he took his seat. "The real question is whether the reform proposal passes." The chamber quieted as Council Prime Director Zorlak ascended to the speaking platform, his massive arthropoid form commanding immediate attention. Flanking him were representatives of the 5 founding species, the traditional power brokers whose influence had shaped galactic politics for millennia. "Esteemed colleagues," Zorlak began, his translated voice resonating perfectly throughout the massive space. "We convene today to vote on Proposal 7291B, the Autonomous Development Initiative. This legislation would fundamentally alter how the Council interacts with developing worlds and technology transfer protocols." Murmurs rippled through the chamber, though carefully worded in bureaucratic language. Everyone present knew this proposal represented Earth's victory, a dramatic shift from the Council's traditional policy of controlled technological advancement. Elder Luminex, the crystalline entity who had opposed Earth during the initial confrontation, floated forward to address the assembly. Its form pulsed with multicolored light as it spoke. "For 12,000 years, the Council has maintained galactic stability through careful management of technological proliferation." Luminex's melodic voice echoed. "This proposal dismantles those safeguards in favor of a dangerous paradigm of autonomous development." From their Earth delegation position, Vasquez watched the room's reactions carefully, noting which representatives nodded in agreement and which remained deliberately neutral. "They're scared," she whispered to Reynolds. "Luminex is usually more measured." Admiral Trell of the Aquarian Collective rose next, her aquatic features glistening under the chamber lights. Unlike Luminex, she had emerged as an unexpected ally during negotiations. "Change is inevitable," Trell countered, her voice carrying the distinctive harmonic quality of her species. "The recent demonstration of Earth's capabilities revealed fundamental flaws in our oversight model. When a species can develop technologies that completely circumvent our detection, our current approach is already failing." The debate continued for hours, with representatives from dozens of worlds presenting arguments for and against. Throughout it all, the Earth delegation remained conspicuously silent, allowing the Council to argue among themselves. During a brief recess, Vasquez received an urgent communication on her secure device. She reviewed it quickly, then leaned toward Reynolds. "We have a problem," she murmured. Operation Clear signal detected unusual activity in the Praxis sector. Multiple Council intelligence vessels converging on remote Station 17. Reynolds maintained his diplomatic composure, but his eyes sharpened. "That station houses our secondary quantum network hub, which shouldn't be possible for them to detect," Vasquez added. Unless someone told them where to look," Ramirez finished grimly, having overheard the exchange. When the session resumed, the atmosphere had subtly shifted. Vasquez noted increased communication among certain delegations, quick exchanges and furtive glances that her trained eye recognized as coordinated action. Council Prime Director Zorlak returned to the central platform. "Before we proceed to voting, new information has been brought to the Council's attention that may bear on these deliberations." The massive view screen behind him activated, showing a remote space station, instantly recognizable to the Earth delegation as their hidden facility. This installation, operating under communications blackout protocols in restricted space, appears to be of Earth origin, Zorlak stated. "Preliminary scans indicate quantum communication technology far exceeding what Earth has officially disclosed to the Council." Reynolds remained perfectly still, though Vasquez could sense his rapid calculations. The exposure of Station 17 wasn't merely a diplomatic embarrassment. It revealed that humanity had maintained covert operations despite promises of transparency during negotiations. Admiral Vex, the military hardliner who had opposed Earth from the beginning, rose from his seat with barely contained triumph. "This discovery confirms what many of us suspected. Earth's promises of cooperation were tactical deceptions. They maintained covert military capabilities while pushing for reduced oversight." Murmurs of agreement spread through the chamber. The momentum was shifting rapidly against Earth. Reynolds turned to Vasquez. "Options?" "3, she replied quietly. "Deny, justify, or," Reynolds prompted. "Escalate," she finished. "Your call, Ambassador." After a moment's thought, Reynolds stood, signaling his desire to address the assembly. The chamber quieted as he was recognized. "Earth acknowledges the facility in question," he stated calmly, triggering surprised murmurs throughout the chamber. "Station 17 was established prior to our recent agreements as a defensive measure during a period when we had legitimate concerns about Council intentions toward our sovereignty." Admiral Vex's scales flushed with dark colors. "You admit to deception." "I admit to prudence," Reynolds countered. "The station was scheduled for decommissioning next month as part of our phased normalization of relations. Its continued operation posed no threat to the Council." Director Zorlak's compound eyes fixed on Reynolds. "Yet you failed to disclose its existence during our negotiations." As the Council failed to disclose the 17 surveillance outposts monitoring Earth communications, Reynolds replied evenly. "Perfect transparency requires time and trust from all parties." The chamber erupted in shocked conversations. Vasquez watched carefully as Reynolds's calculated revelation caused ripples of reaction among the delegates. Some appeared outraged, others uncomfortable, and a significant number seemed unsurprised, suggesting they had known about the surveillance network all along. Vasquez's secure device vibrated with an urgent alert. She checked it discreetly, then whispered to Reynolds. "Station 17 is reporting Council vessels have engaged docking procedures. They're attempting direct access." Reynolds nodded almost imperceptibly, then continued addressing the chamber. "In the interest of the new relationship we are building, Earth will grant Council investigators full access to Station 17. We have nothing to hide that would threaten galactic security." Director Zorlak conferred briefly with his advisors before responding. This gesture is appreciated, Ambassador. Perhaps we can return to productive dialogue. Professor Elijah Morgan walked through the sweeping crystal archways of the Galactic University's main campus on New Avalon, still somewhat disoriented by the gravity adjustments and the purple-tinged sunlight filtering through the massive biodome overhead. At 63, his lean frame and alert eyes belied his age, though silver had long since claimed his once dark hair. Students of dozens of species parted respectfully as he passed, many whispering after recognizing the human who had revolutionized cross-species education. 6 months had passed since Earth's dramatic confrontation with the Galactic Council, and the ripples continued to spread throughout interstellar society. The Autonomous Development Initiative had triggered a cascade of reforms that few had anticipated, not least of which was the unprecedented integration program that had brought Morgan to this prestigious institution. Professor Morgan, called a melodic voice from behind him. Morgan turned to see Talvex, a young draconian student whose scaled features were arranged in what Morgan had learned to recognize as enthusiasm. Your seminar on comparative cognitive frameworks has 57% more registration requests than capacity allows. Morgan smiled. Then we'll simply have to schedule additional sessions, won't we? No one should be turned away from knowledge. That philosophy, once radical by council standards, was rapidly becoming the new normal. For millennia, the council had carefully controlled information flow between species, particularly regarding advanced technological and scientific concepts. Earth's challenge to that system had cracked foundations that had stood unchallenged for too long. Morgan's communication device chimed softly. The screen displayed a priority message from Director Vasquez. Urgency Level 2. Secure call requested. I need to take this in private, Morgan told his assistant. Please ensure the lecture hall is properly configured for multi-species attendance. In his office, a space recently adapted to accommodate human physiology, Morgan activated the quantum-encrypted communication system disguised as standard university equipment. Director Vasquez's image appeared, her expression characteristically controlled but with tension visible around her eyes. Elijah, she greeted him. How's academic life treating you? Better than expected, he replied, immediately shifting into the careful language of their professional relationship. The integration initiative has met surprisingly little resistance at the university level. These young minds are eager for new perspectives. Vasquez nodded. That's consistent with our findings across multiple sectors. The younger generations are embracing the changes. It's the entrenched power structures showing concerning patterns of adaptation. Morgan recognized the coded warning. Tell me. The Council Reform Commission is fragmenting, Vasquez explained. 3 distinct factions have emerged. Progressives supporting full implementation of the Autonomous Development Initiative, traditionalists seeking to preserve core oversight functions, and a new group, the Sovereignists, advocating for complete dissolution of centralized council authority. Morgan frowned. Dissolution wasn't our objective. No, but it's becoming an unintended consequence, Vasquez continued. The Centaurian Commonwealth and 7 other regional powers have begun withholding participation in council programs, citing Earth's example as precedent. Morgan moved to the window, gazing out at the spectacular campus grounds where students from hundreds of worlds mingled freely. And this concerns us because power vacuums are rarely filled by benevolent forces, Vasquez replied grimly. Our intelligence indicates that several militaristic factions are positioning themselves to establish regional hegemonies if the council framework collapses. The stability we sought to reform might instead shatter entirely. What does Ambassador Reynolds say? That's why I'm contacting you, Vasquez said. Reynolds has been summoned to an emergency session of the Inner Council. Unusually, they've requested he bring a non-diplomatic human advisor, someone who understands both Earth's position and broader galactic stability concerns. Morgan raised an eyebrow. They want me to attend a closed Inner Council session? That's unprecedented. These are unprecedented times, Professor, Vasquez replied. A secure transport will arrive within the hour. The briefing package is being transmitted now. After the communication ended, Morgan quickly reviewed the encrypted files. The situation was more volatile than Vasquez had outlined. Regional conflicts erupting along borders where Council peacekeeping forces had withdrawn. trade disputes escalating without mediation, and concerning movements of military assets by several powerful species. Earth had wanted reform, not chaos. Now it seemed they might have triggered both. 4 hours later, Morgan found himself aboard a diplomatic shuttle approaching the Harmonic Convergence, the Council's massive orbital headquarters that orbited the gas giant like an artificial moon. Ambassador Reynolds sat opposite him, reviewing final notes before their unprecedented audience. The Inner Council has never invited an outside academic before, Reynolds noted. They must be truly desperate. Or they believe I'll be more malleable than another diplomat, Morgan suggested. After all, I've spent the last 6 months advocating for integration and cooperation. Reynolds smiled thinly. Then they understand humans even less than I thought. You were chosen because you understand systems theory better than anyone else in human space. The Autonomous Development Initiative was based largely on your work. The shuttle docked with the massive station, and they were escorted immediately to a chamber Morgan had only seen in historical records. The Contemplation Nexus, where the 13 most influential council members made decisions that affected thousands of worlds. Unlike the Grand Assembly chambers used for general council business, the Nexus was intimate and austere. A circular table of some material that seemed to shift between solid and liquid dominated the center. Surrounded by 13 stations adapted for the diverse physiologies of the inner council members, Council Prime Director Zorlak acknowledged their arrival with a slight motion of his upper appendages. Ambassador Reynolds, Professor Morgan. The Inner Council appreciates your prompt response to our invitation. Morgan noted the careful phrasing, invitation, not summons, and the subtle emphasis on appreciation rather than expectation. The Council was adapting its diplomatic language when addressing humans, a small but significant evolution. The Inner Council honors us with this unprecedented access, Reynolds replied with equal care. Earth stands ready to assist in matters of mutual concern. Elder Luminex, the crystalline entity who had once opposed Earth's membership so vigorously, pulsed with soft blue light. We face an unexpected paradigm failure, Professor Morgan. The reforms your species championed are producing system-wide instabilities that threaten the very framework of interstellar governance. Morgan stepped forward. With respect, Elder Luminex, what you're experiencing isn't system failure. It's system evolution. Complex networks often display chaotic reorganization phases when adapting to new parameters. Admiral Trell, who had emerged as Earth's strongest ally on the Council, made a gesture of agreement. The professor's assessment aligns with our observations. However, theory provides cold comfort when regional conflicts are erupting across 17 sectors. For the next several hours, the Inner Council detailed the cascading crises threatening galactic stability. Morgan listened intently, asking occasional clarifying questions while developing a comprehensive understanding of the situation. It was worse than Vasquez had indicated. The 12,000-year-old power structures were unraveling faster than anyone had anticipated. Finally, Director Zorlak addressed Morgan directly. You helped design the theoretical framework that led to this situation, Professor. What solution does Earth propose? Morgan glanced at Reynolds, who nodded slightly, giving him authority to speak for their world. This, Morgan realized, had been the plan all along, not merely to have him advise, but to present Earth's vision directly. The Council faces not one crisis but 3 interconnected challenges, Morgan began, activating the holographic display embedded in the table. First, a crisis of legitimacy, as member worlds question the Council's authority. Second, a crisis of function, as centralized control mechanisms fail. Third, a crisis of purpose, as the very mission of the Council comes into question. The display showed a network diagram of interconnected nodes representing Council worlds, with stress fractures appearing throughout the structure. For 12,000 years, the Council has operated on a fundamental premise that stability requires control. Morgan continued. Earth's perspective, informed by our own tumultuous history, suggests an alternative model. The most robust complex systems are those that embrace emergent properties rather than suppressing them. Admiral Vex, still skeptical of human intentions, interjected. Theoretical abstractions don't prevent warships from firing on one another, Professor. No, but proper system architecture might, Morgan countered. The Council's current instability stems not from too much autonomy, but from incomplete transformation. You've removed the control mechanisms. Commander Olivia Drake stood at the observation window of Nexus Station, watching the spectacular light show as thousands of ships arrived for the Galactic Accord Summit. 1 year had passed since Earth's confrontation with the Council, and the transformations initiated during that tumultuous period were about to be formalized in the most significant diplomatic gathering in 12,000 years. At 38, Drake had the focused intensity of someone who had spent her career in military intelligence before being reassigned to the diplomatic corps. Her dark hair was pulled back in a practical style that framed sharp features and watchful eyes that missed nothing. As security chief for Earth's delegation, her calm demeanor concealed constant vigilance. "Quite the turnout," remarked a voice beside her. Drake turned to see Admiral Donovan, who had commanded Earth's fleet during the confrontation. Now serving as military liaison to the diplomatic mission, Donovan's presence was both symbolic and practical. 3,817 confirmed delegations, Drake replied. Representatives from every recognized spacefaring civilization in the galaxy. The logistics alone are mind-boggling. Donovan nodded toward a massive crystalline vessel emerging from hyperspace, its geometric structure catching the light of the nearby star and fracturing it into dazzling patterns. The Luminary flagship. Elder Luminex must be taking a personal interest. As are all the founding species, Drake confirmed. Our intelligence indicates some remain deeply skeptical about the proposed restructuring. This summit is as much about convincing them as it is about ratifying the accords. Their conversation was interrupted by an incoming communication. Drake accepted it with a subtle gesture, and Director Vasquez's face appeared on her wrist display. "Commander Admiral," Vasquez greeted them. "Security sweep confirmed 3 potential concerns requiring attention before the Earth delegation arrives. Details transmitted to your secure channel. Ambassador Reynolds and Professor Morgan are departing Earth in 40 minutes. Ensure everything is prepared." After acknowledging the directive, Drake turned to Donovan. "I need to address these security matters. The ambassador's arrival is too high profile to risk any complications." Donovan's expression grew serious. "Need assistance?" "Not yet," Drake replied, "but remain available. Some of our friends might need a reminder of Earth's capabilities if diplomatic channels prove insufficient." Drake made her way through the massive space station, a neutral facility constructed specifically for the summit in unclaimed space between major territorial boundaries. Representatives from hundreds of species filled the corridors and gathering spaces, their diverse physiologies requiring complex environmental accommodations that the station's designers had ingeniously resolved. The first security concern involved unauthorized scanning equipment detected near the Earth delegation's assigned quarters, subtle but sophisticated technology designed to penetrate standard privacy protocols. Drake found the devices camouflaged as architectural elements, bearing the distinctive engineering signatures of the Draconian Intelligence Directorate. Rather than removing the devices, Drake simply modified them, introducing a subtle program that would feed false information while appearing to function normally. Let Admiral Vex's agents think they had successfully infiltrated Earth's security. The misinformation would serve Earth's purposes. The second concern led her to the station's central processing hub, where Drake's technical team had detected unusual patterns in the communication routing algorithms. Using her override credentials, she accessed the core systems to investigate personally. "Interesting approach," she murmured to herself as the code patterns revealed themselves. Someone had introduced a sophisticated filtering algorithm designed to subtly delay or reroute specific types of diplomatic communications. The code was elegant, almost beautiful in its complexity, and unmistakably of Centaurian origin. Drake didn't remove this intrusion either. Instead, she isolated a copy for analysis and implemented a countermeasure that would allow Earth to track exactly what information the Centaurians were attempting to intercept. The third security concern proved more troubling. A credible threat against Professor Morgan from an extremist faction known as the Purists, who opposed any deviation from traditional council structures. Drake strengthened the security protocols around the professor's scheduled appearances and assigned her best agents to his personal detail. With the immediate concerns addressed, Drake returned to the arrival bay as the Earth diplomatic vessel completed its docking procedures. Ambassador Reynolds emerged first, flanked by his staff, followed by Professor Morgan and General Ramirez. The delegation had been carefully chosen to represent both diplomatic and strategic interests. "Commander Drake," Reynolds greeted her. "Everything in order?" "3 minor situations all contained," she reported quietly. "Nothing unexpected." Morgan studied her with perceptive eyes. "You left their surveillance in place, I presume?" Drake permitted herself a small smile. "Knowledge flows in multiple directions, Professor. They'll learn exactly what we want them to learn." The Earth delegation proceeded to their designated quarters to prepare for the opening ceremonies. Drake remained at Reynolds' side as he moved through a series of preliminary meetings with key allies and potential partners. "The Aquarian Collective has officially endorsed our framework," Reynolds told Drake between meetings. "Admiral Trell has been instrumental in bringing 17 undecided systems into alignment with our position." "And the opposition?" Drake asked. "Concentrated but vocal," Reynolds replied. "The inner core worlds stand to lose the most influence under the new system. They're pushing for modifications that would preserve their historical advantages. Will you concede?" Reynolds considered this thoughtfully. "Some points are negotiable. The core principles are not." The opening ceremony of the Galactic Accord Summit unfolded with spectacular pageantry. In the massive Central Assembly Hall, larger than any council chamber previously constructed, representatives from thousands of worlds gathered in a display of diversity that would have been unimaginable just a year earlier. Council Prime Director Zorlak opened the proceedings, his massive arthropoid form commanding respect even from those who opposed his leadership. "For 12,000 years, the Galactic Council has maintained order across the stars," Zorlak began, his translated voice perfectly calibrated to reach every corner of the vast space. "Today we gather not to abandon that legacy, but to evolve it for the challenges of a new era." From her position behind the Earth delegation, Drake observed the reactions across the chamber. Some representatives nodded in solemn agreement. Others remained conspicuously still, their opposition evident in their restraint. "The proposed Galactic Accord represents not an ending but a transformation," Zorlak continued. "The principles of cooperation and mutual security that have guided us for millennia will remain our foundation, even as the structures through which we implement those principles adapt to changing realities." Elder Luminex took the platform next, its crystalline form pulsing with light as it spoke. "Change is never without risk. Some among us fear that the autonomy embraced in these accords will lead to fragmentation and conflict. Others believe that only through such evolution can we achieve true stability." As the ceremonial speeches continued, Drake's attention was drawn to unusual movement at the chamber's upper level. 3 figures were positioning themselves with careful precision, their movements too coordinated to be coincidental. A quick scan with her enhanced optics confirmed her suspicion. Weapons carefully concealed but unmistakably present. Drake activated her secure communication link to the security team. "Potential threat, upper tier, sections 12, 17, and 23. Converge but do not engage without my command." She slipped away from the Earth delegation, moving with practiced invisibility through the crowd. Years of intelligence fieldwork had taught her how to be forgettable, to move without drawing attention. Within minutes, she had positioned herself behind one of the suspicious figures, a being using artificial enhancements to appear as a member of the Talaxian species. The would-be assassin never sensed her approach. Drake's neural disruptor, disguised as a standard diplomatic credential, rendered the attacker unconscious before they could act. Across the chamber, her security team simultaneously neutralized the other conspirators with similar efficiency. The ceremony continued without interruption, none of the dignitaries aware of how close they had come to violence. Later investigation would reveal the attackers as members of the Purist faction, intent on preventing Professor Morgan from presenting the theoretical framework for the new accords. When Morgan finally took the central platform, his calm academic demeanor belied the revolutionary nature of his presentation. "The model we propose today," Morgan explained, displaying complex holographic simulations above the assembly, replaces hierarchical control with networked resilience. Rather than imposing uniformity, It creates systems where diversity becomes a strength rather than a liability.